Cynthia and John T., a married couple from the Isle of Wight, England, were shaken to the core on September 12, 1959, when their home was invaded by strange alien beings. Early one morning at 1 a.m, their two children fast asleep in their bedroom. Bright light shining through the window awoke Cynthia from her sleep. Puzzled and a little afraid, she shook her husband's arm to wake him. They both walked over to the window to see a symbol-shaped object facing them outside, hovering in the sky. This lasted a few minutes. Then the mud-coloured lights flashed before them as the object zoomed upwards into the night sky. Shocked and confused, Cynthia and John returned to bed, trying to evaluate each other's thoughts on what they had seen. But before they could come to any conclusion, the bright lights reappeared. This time though, two strange human-like creatures walked in from the window towards them and stood at the foot of the bed. They were each about 4 feet tall, had large oversized heads, and dressed in silver foil type suits. Their skin looked pale and had no hair. The two figures stood in silence, rapidly blinking their dark, large, oversized fish-like eyes. Cynthia and John felt paralysed, unable to move, and a draining feeling ran through their bodies. They never saw the figures ever again, but what they did see on each other's forehead was a small, identical pinprick hole, as if something had penetrated their skin. It was 11 p.m. on a warm summer's night in August 1975, deep in the heart of England, UK. Malcolm Marsden's car he was driving slowly came to a halt alongside a reservoir on a dark country road. He tried the ignition over and over, but the engine wouldn't start. Miles from anywhere, he began to resign himself to the fact he wasn't going to make it home tonight. Suddenly a bright light rose from out of the reservoir and landed on the road a short distance from Malcolm's car. Malcolm stepped out of his vehicle to investigate. As he slowly walked forward, through the bright lights he could make out an oval-shaped object the size of a small truck. But when he got within a few meters of it, he became paralysed, unable to move. Malcolm watched as two human-like creatures emerged from the object. They were tall and gangly, with wide-shaped faces. Their skin looked white and smooth. They walked past Malcolm with tall, wide steps. Still unable to move, Malcolm could hear sounds of a struggle coming from behind him. Then seconds later, the two tall, strange figures walked past, each carrying what looked like large dead animals, maybe deers, returning to the brightly lit object. The object then seemed to float a few feet off the ground, before darting up and disappearing into the night sky. Malcolm dropped to the floor, then ran back to his car. He noticed bloodstains along the road. Unbelievably, his car engine was now running. He jumped in and shakily drove home. October 12, 1983. After stepping off a bus in a rural area of North Wales, Rhys Evans began his walk home down a country lane before cutting across a field. He followed the path of his torchlight as he crossed over the dark muddy field. About halfway across, he became aware of a bright orange light descending from the night sky. He stood and watched, transfixed with fear, as it landed within 10 meters of him. The orange lights then turned to red, blue, green, flashing on and off. Rhys could make out an oval-type shaped object. Then through the lights he saw strange creature-like figures emerge from the object and start walking towards him. Rhys turned and started to run back towards the road, but the muddy field made it hard to gather speed. He felt something grabbing at his shoulders and neck. Rhys dropped the torch and began hitting out with his fists, but 3 or maybe 4 figures overpowered him, lifted him off the ground and carried him towards the brightly lit object. Inside the object, he found himself laid out on a table in a metallic square room, brightly lit, like a light shining directly into his face, making it hard for him to see. His arms and legs were tied down. Then 5 or 6 bright creature-like faces suddenly appeared directly in front of him. They appeared to communicate with clicking and purring sounds. Then he felt his eyes being stretched open as their faces moved closer to his. Rhys doesn't have any recollection of what happened next. He woke up shivering and naked in the farmer's dark field next to his still glowing torchlight.